before, in human history, we share a common destiny. We can master it only if we face it together. And that, my friends, is why we have the United Nations. Kofi Annan. The United Nations, UN, is an intergovernmental organization that aims to maintain international peace and security, develop friendly relations among nations, achieve international cooperation, and be a center for harmonizing the actions of nations. It is the largest, most familiar, most internationally represented, and most powerful intergovernmental organization in the world. The UN is headquartered on international territory in New York City, with its other main offices in Geneva, Nairobi, Vienna, and The Hague. The UN was established after World War II with the aim of preventing future wars, succeeding the ineffective League of Nations. On 25th April 1945, 50 governments met in San Francisco for a conference and started drafting the UN Charter, which was adopted on 25th June 1945 and took effect on 24th October 1945, when the UN began operations.
At its founding, the UN had 51 member states, with the addition of South Sudan in 2011. Membership is now 193, representing almost all of the world's sovereign states. On October 24, 2019, to mark the UN Day, Secretary General Antonio Guterres announced that in 2020, in commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, will feature a large and inclusive global conversation on the role of global cooperation in building the future we want. This year, the United Nations is celebrating its 75th anniversary. In these 75 years, the UN has succeeded in maintaining international peace and security and preventing major wars among the countries. Let us celebrate this great day with pride and honor.
My dear Christites, as the UN celebrates its 75th anniversary, the iconic moments of their enduring commitment to peace, development and security is highlighted. We understand that Christites need to know more and more about the ventures of the United Nations. As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has led to the largest disruption of education ever. At least 40 million children worldwide have missed out on education in their critical preschool year. Despite the delivery of lessons by radio, television and online, and the best efforts of teachers and parents, many students remain out of reach. Learners with disabilities, those in minority or disadvantaged communities, displaced and refugee students and those in remote areas are at highest risk of being left behind. The UN plays a vital role in getting students back into schools and learning institutions as safely as possible as a top priority once local transmission of COVID-19 is under control. The UN has issued guidance to help governments in this complex endeavor. Consultation with parents, teachers and young people has been made fundamental by the UN. The UN educates us about the generational opportunity to reimagine education. We can take a leap towards forward-looking systems that deliver quality education. To achieve this, the UN insists on investment in digital literacy and infrastructure, an evolution towards learning how to learn, a rejuvenation of lifelong learning, and strengthened links between formal and non-formal education. As the world faces unsustainable levels of inequality, we need education, the great equalizer, more than ever. Let us understand the importance of the day and try to learn more about United Nations and be a part of the UN initiatives for a better and self-sustainable future. Thank you.
United Nations officially came into existence on 24 October 1945 when the Charter had been ratified by China, France, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, the United States and many other signatories. United Nations Day is celebrated on 24 October every year. The UN provides a forum for its members to express their views in the General Assembly, the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council, and other bodies and committees. By enabling dialogues and hosting negotiations, the organization has become a mechanism for the government to find areas of agreement and solve problems together.
Main organs of the United Nations are General Assembly, the Security Council, the Social and Economic Council, the Trusteeship Council, the International Court of Justice, and the UN Secretariat. They were all established in 1945 when the United Nations was founded.
We now have reporters Master Mevin Ruben D'Souza and Ms. Zehra Shami from Christ School Icse joining us in. Let us know more about the main organs of the UN from them.
Thank you, Anupa. So, my dear viewers, let us begin with the General Assembly. The General Assembly is the main deliberative, policy-making and representative organ of the United Nations. All 193 member states of the United Nations are represented in the General Assembly, making it the only UN body with universal representation. The pandemic is not the only issue which the world faces. Racism, intolerance, inequality, armed conflict, poverty, and other ills remain global challenges. These challenges call for global action, and the 75th session of the General Assembly was a critical moment for all to come together and chart a course to the future.
The Security Council has primary responsibility under the UN Charter for the maintenance of international peace and security. It has 15 members. The Security Council takes the lead in determining the existence of a threat to the peace or act of aggression. It calls upon the parties to a dispute to settle it by peaceful means and recommends methods of adjustment or terms of settlement.
The Economic and Social Council is the principal body for coordination, policy review, policy dialogue and recommendations on environmental, social and economical issues, as well as implementation of internationally development goals.
The International Court of Justice is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. The court's role is to settle in accordance with international law, legal disputes submitted to it by states, and to give advisory opinion on legal questions referred to it by authorized United Nations organs and specialized agencies.
The Secretariat comprises of the Secretary General and tens of thousands of international UN workers who carry out day-to-day work of the UN as mandated by the General Assembly and the organization's other principal organs.
Thank you for sharing your information, dear Mevin and Zehra.
Today, as we mark the 75th anniversary of the UN, let's remember some of its major achievements.
We now have reporter Mr. Dasha Vinod joining us from Christ School Icse, who is going to tell us about some of the major achievements of the United Nations.
Thank you, Alex. So, my dear viewers, let's see some of the major achievements of the UN. The UN has succeeded in preventing an outbreak of a third world war. Some of the disputes that could lead to a war
have been peacefully resolved by the organization. The UN is in support of respect for the fundamental rights of citizens in different parts of the world. The UN gives serious attention to arms limitation and disarmament between the major powers of the world. The UN provides aid through its specialized agencies to the troubled or needy areas of the world. The UN helps to control dangerous diseases through the World Health Organization. The UN is involved in the solving of problems facing refugees in different parts of the world. The International Labour Organization has enhanced the status of organized labor.
Thank you for sharing the information, dear Natasha. India is one of the founding members of the United Nations. It has always been supporting and respecting the UN's work. Now, we have Master Shihab and Ms. Suravi joining us from Grad School Icse, who will be telling us about India's contribution to UN.
India, being one of the permanent members of the UN, signed the Declaration of the United Nations at Washington on 1st January 1942. India consistently supported purposes and principles of the United Nations. India viewed UN as a guarantor of international peace and security and is actively participating in it. India has contributed almost 2 lakh troops in 50 out of 71 UN peacekeeping missions since 1950s. It is currently contributing more than 7,600 military and police personnel to UN peacekeeping operations in many countries. India was at forefront in the fight against apartheid and racial discrimination in South Africa in 1950s. India, with non-aligned movement nations, championed the cause for developing world in order to create more equitable economic and political order. It has participated in decision making, although being a non-permanent member puts restrictions on India's part. India is now demanding for United Nations Security Council reforms to create more participatory body.
India is the only nuclear nation which supports complete elimination of nuclear weapons. Although India has not signed the Treaty of Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, its objections are with unfavorable terms with respect to the P5 nations. In the recent years, India has attempted to strengthen the UN systems to combat with global challenges of development and poverty, climate change, terrorism, etc. India is pushing hard for the Comprehensive Convention of International Terrorism to create a counter framework for the counter-terrorism plans. India has been elected for the UN Security Council many times and has also become a non-permanent member for the period of 2011 to 2013, where it played a crucial role in maintaining international harmony and developing its own national security.
Thank you, dear Shihab and Suravi. As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic is turning worse day by day in many countries across the world. In this situation, the WHO plays a vital role in bringing the virus in control. Now, we have a reporter, Ms. Kusumanjali, to tell us about the WHO's work during this pandemic.
Reporting from the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization has been at the heart of the battle against the new coronavirus ever since the first reported outbreak in China. On December 31, 2019, China reported to the WHO a cluster of pneumonia cases with unknown cause found in the city of Wuhan, the capital of province Hubei. Immediately, the WHO activated a crisis group putting the body on emergency footing for dealing with the outbreak. The WHO on social media reported a cluster of pneumonia cases with no deaths in Wuhan. A day later, it published its first disease outbreak news and destined for scientists and public health specialists on the new virus. The WHO sent technical guidance with advice to all countries on how to detect, test and manage the potential cases. Evidence at the time suggested or limited to human transmission, the WHO said. China gave WHO the genetic sequence of COVID-19. WHO experts from China and the Western Pacific region went on a brief field visit to Wuhan. On January 30th, the WHO declared COVID-19 to be a public health emergency of international concern. On April 24th, the WHO urged the member states to speed up the development, production and the distribution of treatments and vaccines. On March 11th, the WHO designated COVID-19 as a pandemic. The WHO urged countries lifting their lockdown measures to test, isolate and treat the suspected cases while ensuring physical distancing or risk a second wave of infection. The WHO is speeding up the search for an effective vaccine for all. At the same time, it is supporting the building of manufacturing capabilities and buying supply ahead of time so that 2 billion doses can be fairly distributed by the end of 2021.
The UN75 initiative seeks to spark dialogue and action on how we can build a better world despite the many challenges we face. Efforts to address climate change and COVID-19 are not mutually exclusive. While the two challenges are not the same, there are significant parallels. For example, COVID-19 has revealed the world's vulnerabilities, many of which intersect with the climate crisis. At the same time, the pandemic has highlighted the importance of expertise and science, cooperation, and transparency. It has also demonstrated that societies can, when necessary, pull together to address global challenges with bold responses. The world has changed much in the last year and it will continue to change. The story of human history is the story of overcoming incredible challenges, often in the face of incredible odds. We can overcome the COVID-19 crisis and we will. We can address climate change and we will. But we can only do so by working together, by supporting multilateralism and by relying on the fundamentals underpinning the founding of the United Nations itself. The UN is marking its 75th anniversary at a time of great disruption for the world, compounded by an unprecedented global health crisis with severe economic and social impacts. 2020 must be a year of dialogue when we come together to discuss our priorities as a human family and how we can build a better future for all.